Hello, welcome to Cloud World. My name is Santiago. So welcome to today's video. We will be talking about how to build a message producer for the Azure Service Bus. In case you want to learn what is the Azure Service Bus and some of the basic topics, I'm going to attach the link for the previous video so you can get up to speed. So on today's video, we will be talking about the Nuget packages that are required to use the service bus and how to create a producer. After that, we are going to explore a couple of options that how to create the instance of the service bus using dependency injection and the extension methods that are available throughout the Nuget packages. After that, we are going to explore the code to see how to use it when we are working with a queue. And after that, we will move to see how it works with a topic, which is actually pretty similar with small variations between the calls. After that, we will be testing two endpoints that are exposing a message system for the queue and another one for the topic, and we will explore throughout the Azure portal how the messages arrive to the service bus. So with that in hand, let's start it. So in order to start working with the Azure Service Bus, you will be required to have a couple of Nuget packages installed in your solution. At the day of this video, I will be using .NET 8. I will try to keep the solution as most up to date as possible throughout the GitHub repo, which is attached into the description of the video as well. But with today's date, we actually need a couple of Nuget packages. So the first one will be the Azure Identity, and this Nuget package is going to allow us to have the chance to authenticate against the Azure services using multiple types of authentication. We will explore in detail in that in a moment, but the Azure Identity will allow you to use more advanced scenarios in order to authenticate against your services instead of using basic keys and authentication like that. Of course, you will be required to have the Azure.messaging.service bus. This is the main core Nuget package that is required to interact with an Azure service bus. Also, we will require the Microsoft extension .azure, which is going to allow us to use the Azure Factory in order to use dependency injection to use the Azure services. In addition to that, we will be using the MediaTR Nuget package. This is actually for using the mediator panel and handlers and commands throughout the application. So if you check the repo later or throughout the demo, you will notice that most of the solution is actually written using a feature management or also a vertical slice architecture to split the requirements. So right now, this is the Nuget packages that we need in base. You might have also open API and the SP.NET Core Nuget packages application in case you want to expose an API. So with this in mind, let's get started with the configuration for the extension method and how to use the factory and the Azure Identity Nuget packages together. Now we can go back to the program.cs and start exploring a couple of things in here that are going to be very helpful for our implementation. The first thing that we need to keep into consideration is with the Nuget packages that we already installed, we will be using the services extension in .NET in order to use the extension method at Azure clients. This will give us access to the factory builder into the Azure side, and with the factory builder we will have the capability to inject multiple services in here. So as long as you have not only the Microsoft extension Nuget packages for Azure and also the special packages for any of the services, you will be able to use the same structure to interact with multiple services. As an example, you can use the factory builder to inject, of course, the service bus that we are going to be seeing today, but you can use it also for a storage account, for Redis services, and many other services throughout the Azure portal that support the same authentication schema. So in order to use the service bus, you will be required to use the add service bus with client with namespace extension method, and you will need to provide the connection string for your service bus. If you check the app settings, you will notice something particular. You will only need to provide the namespace of your service bus that is going to take a look at this one. So namespace.servicebus.windows.net. So if you see this example, this is going to be the URL for your service bus. I will be using secrets to handle mine. But if you go through the Azure portal, you will be able to extract very easily the service bus configuration, or you can also use the AC CLI in order to use the AC service bus show and provide the namespace that you would like to see in order to retrieve the URL. So with that in mind, you might notice also that we are only providing the URL for the service, and we are not providing any keys or anything like that. That is because in my local environment, I will be using my credentials with the Azure CLI in this case to authenticate against the service. I already went to the Azure portal and gave the proper permissions to the service bus using my managed identity, my personal identity, sorry. And in this case, I gave the permissions to be able to be a service bus sender in order to send messages. I will be covering in next videos in more detail how to give role access permission into users and manage identities when we deploy this application into the Kubernetes side. So besides that, we will be using the Nuget package for the Azure identity with the new default Azure credentials. You could have multiple options in here. You can specify a particular credential type like the Azure CLI, Visual Studio credential, or managed identity too. But I will prefer and suggest to use always the default Azure credential, because that way the code will be able to find the most appropriate authentication schema based when the code is working. So if you're working in your local environment, of course it will be more suitable if the credential are being given by the Azure CLI. If the application is deployed from the Azure side, it will be best served using the managed identity of the configuration of a service principal, for example. So the default Azure credential is going to cover all of those without any major changes into the code. Now that we set up the Azure Service Bus and the basic configuration that we just gave to it, we can start taking a look into the code. So let's see how we can inject the Service Bus client in order to send a message to a queue. So for this code is going to be very simple. So in the constructor of your class, just make sure to inject the Azure Client Factory interface and specify the type of client that you would like to use. In this case, this is Service Bus client, but as I mentioned previously, this could be for an storage account, it could be for Event Grid, it could be for Event Hubs and several services throughout the Azure site. In this case, we are interested into the Service Bus client. With this, we only need to provide with the Azure Factory the request of a creator of a client. Automatically, he's going to create a client of the type that we specified in here. And we only need to provide a name. I'm going to go back to the program.cs because this is actually pretty important. If you notice, when I created the configuration, I gave a name to it. This is going to take advantage of the naming convention because you could have multiple service buses in a single application. So giving it a unique name is going to allow you to have multiple clients of the same type of service and just use a name to retrieve the one that you are required to. In this case, we need the Azure Labs Service Bus for the client that we just set up. In here, we are going to be providing a Service Bus client. We are going to be using the create sender method, and in this case, we are providing the name of the queue, which in this case is orders. With this in mind, we will be using a JSON serializer just to build our message, and we are using the send message async, so send that message to the Service Bus. It is that simple. If we go to the example for the topic, you will notice there is almost no change into the code because we have exactly the same thing, the same input parameter, the request of a client creation, but the only thing that we are changing in here is the name of the object. In this case, there is a billing, and this billing object is the topic that we created in the Azure portal. So with that in mind, we serialize the message, and we also send the message using the send message async and return a response throughout the user. So as you can see, sending messages to a queue or a topic is actually pretty simple, and we can move ahead and see an example of the message servicing using an API. So now we are seeing here two endpoints that are actually exposing the code that I just explained a moment ago. So for the orders, this will be sending messages to a queue, and for the billing, it will be sending the messages to a particular topic. So you saw the last video, we created a queue and also a topic with two subscriptions, one for the Azure function and another one for the background service. For now, those are just examples, since we are going to be working on the consumer later, which is going to be initially the background service. So let's send a message using the order message sense in this case. And the message is quite simple. Let's just provide some order ID, some name for the order. Let's say demo cloud war in this case. And let's just say, leave the data as it is. So let's go to execute this one. So we already got a response that the message has been sent and has been enqueued at this UTC time. If I go to the Azure portal into my namespace and go to the queue, I will be able to use the Service Bus Explorer tools in order to see the message that I have on my queue. So I'm going to pick from start when I have access to the list in order to retrieve all those messages that I have on list. As you see right now, the order number 10 with the message order name demo cloud is already in here, so we successfully got a message throughout the queue. If I go back into the endpoints and I do exactly the same exercise just for the billing in this case, providing an order ID, some billing ID, and leave the date as it is, we already got a successful send. I will be dialing back into the topics in this case and will be accessing the one that is for billing. Once more, I will be using the Embed Service Bus Explorer tool in order to see it. There is something in particular in here that is going to change, as that we need to select at least one subscription in order to see the messages that arrive to that subscription. So let's choose the background service in this case. I'm going to pick from start as well, and we will be able to see those messages already in here. Order number 10 with billing number 5 and the billing date that we already set up. So as you can see on this demo, it's actually pretty simple to set up a messaging system to send messages to a queue or a topic. On the next video, we will be creating the consumer on the background service in order to consume messages from both for a topic or a queue. Thank you for joining me today, and see you in the next one.